Hi there everyone, and welcome back to Behind the Scenes at the Oliver and District Museum. This is our last part 5, where I'm going to be covering our storage rooms and how we store the artifacts. So once we're done cataloging, we've added the accession number, we've taken all of the photos that we need, we put the artifact into our storage rooms. Museum and archival storage is really special. There are some very strict standards that we have to adhere to. These standards are put out by the Canadian Conservation Institute, the Canadian Museums Association, and these are standards that are adhered to across the board in all Canadian museums. So some of these standards are that all of the shelving has to be unpainted metal. We can't have any wood because wood might off-gas and harm the artifacts. It can't be painted because, much like the wood, the paint would off-gas and potentially harm the artifacts. And those shelves have to be lined with an inert foam so that there's something holding the artifact in place and there's some shock resistance. If the items are going into boxes, those boxes have to be acid-free, and if the artifacts are going to be touching each other in the box, they have to be wrapped in acid-free tissue paper. And again, we use acid-free because it's not going to off-gas, it's not going to harm the artifacts. It's not going to yellow and deteriorate over time, so it has a staying power as these artifacts are going to be held for a while. Also, the storage rooms are closely monitored for changes in temperature and relative humidity. We use these little data loggers and we take monthly readings to make sure that the temperature and relative humidity are within a specific range so that the artifacts aren't going to be harmed. Changes in temperature and relative humidity are factors that can have negative effects on artifacts. If a storage room is too dry, for instance, artifacts can become weak and brittle. If the storage room is too humid, some artifacts can swell and others can give off harmful gases. If a storage room cycles between the two, artifacts are likely to break from the repeated expanding and contracting that humidity and dryness cause. So throughout our storage rooms, you may see that we have rolling shelving in some, and some just have metal shelving. And especially in our offsite storage, we have a lot of artifacts put up onto the walls. This is to maximize space. So rolling storage you may have seen in libraries before, potentially. This means that we can fit more shelving into a smaller space. And especially here at the Oliver and District Museum, we don't have a lot of space to work with. So the rolling shelving really helps for us. Out in our offsite storage, which is a larger place, we have a lot of ground space, but that's usually taken up by larger items like wine presses and any hospital equipment that we have. We have a lot of apple packing artifacts. That needs a lot of ground space. That's really what's taking up the room in our offsite storage. And then again, like I said, there's shelving up on the walls, and then there's also large flat items that can be hung up on the walls safely on hooks. And the hooks are wrapped in that same foam that we use on the shelving. When it comes to sorting the artifacts, storage rooms can be laid out in a variety of ways. Some artifacts can be grouped by what they're made of, since they may require specific atmospheric conditions. An example of this would be the archives. All of our paper artifacts are together at the archives because paper needs a very specific temperature and relative humidity, so it's not going to deteriorate. Some artifacts, like in our garage storage on the rolling shelves, are grouped together by category. We have them grouped together by a system called nomenclature, which was a book that was put out many, many years ago and has been updated ever since. This is a standard that some museums, most museums, use when they're cataloging artifacts so that it's really easy to find items that go under the same categories. There's usually 3 tiers, and on these rolling shelves, that's what we've done. We've grouped all of the items together. I hope you've enjoyed the final installment of Behind the Scenes at the Oliver and District Museum. Now you know what it takes for an item to be donated and brought all the way into our storage. I hope this gave you a greater understanding of what we do here at the museum behind the scenes and gave you a closer look at something you probably would have never seen before, like going into our storage rooms or our databases. And hopefully next time you visit a museum, this gives you an understanding of what goes on behind the scenes, because this isn't just behind the scenes at our museum. This is behind the scenes at all museums. And it's a really important part of maintaining the history of specific places.